Welcome to Dark Age of Camelot. Albion, Midgard, and Hibernia are at war. In the years since the death of King Arthur, the fragile peace between these realms has been shattered. To which realm will you pledge your allegiance?
What the hell is even that?
Are you seriously telling me that I can't even use the trailer for this game because it's copyrighted?
How dare you!
I can already tell that this MMO will be shocking. Cue the intro. An enemy. Oh, is that? Oh, it's a town guard. Oh.
You frickin' prick!
Maybe I don't go in there. Maybe. The true test of a great MMO. Can you swim? Once again, an MMO, which is better than New World. Dark Age of Camelot was released back in 2001, round about the same time as EverQuest, Ultimate Online, and Asheron's Call. And if you played any of those MMOs, I've got some news for you. You're old as fuck. Sorry, I couldn't resist. It was a PVP Centric game developed by Mythic Studios, which was a combination of two former studios. You had Adventures Unlimited Software Inc., headed by Mark Jacobs, who I'll talk about a bit later, and Interesting Systems Inc., which was founded by a few different people, but one name in particular might stand out, and that is of course Matt Frewer. Anyway, the current head of Elder Scrolls Online. That's who that guy is. We'll come back to that later as well. It's a high fantasy MMO RPG set around the time after King Arthur's death. And you might be wondering, why choose the theme Camelot? Was it because there's so much mysticism around the stories? The fact that it's so legendary and known by everyone? Well, it's actually because they're on a budget and IPs cost a lot of money. And King Arthur is public domain, baby. To coincide with the lore, it's set in Old Albion, otherwise known as Great Britain. There are 3 realms to choose from, with Albion being Old Blighty.
Good morning, Glenn! You tell us something your mum doesn't know. Yeah.
You then had the Hibernia land, which was based on Celtic folklore, aka the Irish. And then of course Midgard, which was based on the Norse mythology. Upon release they forecasted 30,000 players, but actually went on to sell 51,000 copies in the first 4 days of release. In the first week they sold 115,000. Safe to say, it was popular. What's more impressive than its popularity is the fact that it started development in 1999. That's right, it was developed and launched in 2 years. The population would start to dwindle over time, and this was attributed to several factors. The launch of WoW had obviously a massive effect, especially considering it was very similar in style, but with better graphics you might argue. But also some internal reshuffling of the team at Mythic Studio would also lead to perhaps some population loss. Matt Frewer would go on to work for ZeniMax Studios, producing the Elder Scrolls Online, which is notably very similar in setup to Dark Age of Camelot, and Mark Jacobs would also end up working on another MMO RPG, Warhammer Online. In 2014, Broadsword went on to purchase Dark Age of Camelot as well as Ultimate Online, and Mythic Studios went on to shut down. Broadsword are kind of known as the retirement home of MMOs and tend to acquire games which are on their last legs. Which brings us to the present day, where I decided to visit that retirement home and see how old Dark Age of Camelot is getting on. Because that's what we do here on this channel, we review old MMOs and old RPGs which are no longer relevant. By the way, I do take game suggestions, so if there's an old MMO or RPG you want me to check out, let me know in the comments below, I might just add it to my list. And if you don't find my voice too annoying, feel free to leave a like on this video and maybe consider subscribing. But anyway, that's enough history lessons for now. Let's go take a look at Dark Age of Camelot and the current state of it in 2024. So the good news is Dark Age of Camelot is free to play. The bad news is you have to have an EA Origin account. And who can be bothered with that ball ache? There is an optional subscription fee which will give you benefits and perks, but honestly I opted out of subscribing. It has nothing to do with the fact that it costs $14 a month.
If you're
whatever, broke boy, just say so.
I'll be honest, I'm in two minds about this. For one, I understand that they want to keep the game running, but at $14.99 a month, and if you don't buy it, you're kind of cucked in terms of what you can do. It just doesn't sit quite well. It just feels like EA is being EA.
You can't keep getting away with it!
But anyway, let's talk about the game some more. Depending on what faction you choose, you'll have a variety of different races to make. The Albion races tend to be more human-like and, well, apart from half ogre. Although, if you go to Luton, it's probably not that far off.
Find out who you are, I'm gonna tie your dad up and we're gonna fucking bomb him!
Hibernia obviously goes for the Irish stereotype of leprechaun-looking motherfuckers and leprechaun-looking motherfuckers. And then you have Midgard, which obviously has all the best ones like Dwarf, Norseman, and of course, Troll. Guess which one I chose. Although the character creator is quite dated, I have to admit it wasn't that bad. It actually gave you a bit of variety. Just a smidge. Little did I know though, this would be the easiest part of my day. Actually playing the game is a whole different story. Okay, so let's talk gameplay. It has the usual tab targeting we come to expect from games of this era. There is a slight twist though. When you choose a skill, it's not instant, it queues it up. A strange concept I know, but hey, I think tab targeting is archaic.
You sure about that? You sure about that? That's why?
There is no voice acting, but in-depth dialogue. The graphics, not that bad to be honest, they're kind of in line with Lotro. Similar to classic WoW, you have your different trainers dotted about for you to go and improve your skills. And yes, it has the usual fetch quest, but this was one of the first MMOs to be released, so it was a trendsetter, not a copycat. Now remember, I said it's PVP centric. Well, it's one of the first MMOs to properly incentivize PvP. You had a whole bunch of skills which can only be improved if you partake in player versus player combat. This comes in the form of realm versus realm, a forever war against the other factions. You can travel to different battlegrounds which are public areas that allow you to do PvE quests in a PvP zone, and by doing PvP, you gain realm points. This meant players would work together in PvP to try and get realm points in order to improve their characters. Faction loyalty was a huge aspect of this game. You can only speak to people in the same faction as yourself as well, and there are castles you can capture and even siege weapons. Sadly though, I didn't get to see any of this, and that's not through lack of trying. It might be due to the fact that there's a very limited population. Well, that's on the official servers anyway. You can actually see how many people are on your faction at any given time, and there was 50. So in theory, if the other factions have the same amount, there was 150 people online on the server during peak time. I did bump into a few people, but honestly, I don't even know really how to interact with them. One person though did give me a lot of money for no apparent reason. I can only assume it's because I was new and they want to welcome me to the community. Or pay me to play the game, I don't know. Either way though, I appreciate your generosity. Thank you, Lofani. There is of course player housing, crafting, fashion. It's actually quite impressive how much this antique MMO actually has. Sadly though, no matter what time of day I played, I just couldn't help but feel lonely. And the issue is, a lot of the content seems to be group-based content. You have classes which are there just to buff you when you are trying to fight enemies, which just makes it a very horrible solo experience. And I know what you're thinking, MMOs aren't supposed to be played solo, but there wasn't anyone else to play with. As someone who used to play The Elder Scrolls Online, I see how much influence this game had on it, which is why it's even more surprising that there's never been a sequel to this title. Although, that's not to say there hasn't been attempts. Mark Jacobs, do you remember this guy? I mentioned him earlier. Well, good news, he doesn't want Dark Age of Camelot to end at Dark Age of Camelot. He wants there to be a sequel, just like the rest of us. Which is why he created a Kickstarter for Camelot Unchained, the sequel to Dark Age of Camelot. I can already tell what you're thinking. Ooh, another Kickstarter MMO, just what we need. But wait, there's more. Initially, it attracted a lot of interest because even though by today's standards, DAOC might not be performing too well, people remember it for the PvP powerhouse that it once was. The Kickstarter received a whopping $2 million from around about 15 100,000 backers, and this happened in 2015. Unfortunately though, since the Kickstarter has ended and it's gone into development, I guess, it's been slow progress, or some might say no progress. There was a beta 1 though, which was strange because there was no alpha, so it kind of jumped straight to beta, and usually if you're beta testing, it's a sign that you're close to completion.
That's what she said.
Which isn't the case for Camelot Unchained. Mark Jacobs did, however, release a different title. This comes in the form of Final Stand Ragnarok, which is using the same game engine as Camelot Unchained, which isn't out yet. So as you can imagine, if you had backed Camelot Unchained, put your own hard-earned cash towards this title, and then they turn around and bring out a different game, potentially with the money that you put forward, your mood's going to shift slightly. You're going to be somewhat annoyed, I can imagine. And to be honest, this whole situation is a massive clusterfuck. Now, I could sit here for the next 20 minutes and go over the full history of Camelot Unchained and just everything and anything that's been going on, but I'll be honest with you, KiraTV has done such a good job on this subject. Go watch him. I'll link his videos in the description below. But overall, it's not good. I don't think there's going to be a sequel anytime soon. Well, there might be something. In my search for anything positive about Dark Age of Camelot and its future, I did come across something quite interesting. It seems as though someone has made it their mission to try and port this ancient title to Unreal Engine 5, and I have to say, I'm not against the idea. The game is quite dated, and yes, it could do with a graphics overhaul, but UE5 could give you so much more than that. And yes, I know I'm going to get that one comment, which will be like, oh, but what about RuneScape? What about WoW? They don't need UE5 and they're so popular. But you have to understand, this game was using the same engine as Morrowind. It's very limited in what it can do. So in terms of the future of Dark Age of Camelot, unless by some miracle the Unchained version actually releases, I think it's safe to say there won't be a sequel anytime soon. And that's sad. On the positive side though, Broadsword are known for keeping games running to the end of time. So it's not like you won't be able to play it, it's just you have to accept the fact that no one else wants to play it right now. And honestly, I'm not too sure why. Some people call out the fact that it's very PVP centric, but you have to understand, for quite a number of years, there was over 100,000 people playing this game. So it wasn't that PvP was a problem, it was just that it fizzled out. And that's understandable. Games can fizzle out. Without Dark Age of Camelot, would there even be open world PvP as we know it? It literally took the RP part in MMO RPG roleplay and made it a part of the player versus player experience. It wasn't just something you did to pass the time, it was something you had to do for the greater good of your realm. I mean, when was the last time you played a game where you had a sense of loyalty to your faction? That actually mattered which side you picked. It's a shame to see games like Dark Age of Camelot being the retirement home for MMOs, because you kind of feel like it's the type of title that modern players want. Is it truly that different from the likes of Ashes of Creation, where they're trying to pillar being social in an MMO? To those who got to play this game in its glory, I envy you, because I don't think we'll see another highly successful PvP centric game for quite some time. And we're always told that no one wants PvP in an MMO, and yet this MMO lasted for several years with hundreds of thousands of players. So what does that say about the community and what they actually want from an MMO? And on that bombshell of a revelation, I'm going to end the video there. If you did watch up to this far, well, thank you, it's always appreciated. I do plan on doing another 100-hour review of an MMO RPG, so maybe put some suggestions down below as to what one I should jump into next. But as always, please leave a like if you've enjoyed this video, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you haven't subscribed, why not? You got this far, you might as well. I'll leave a couple of videos on the screen for you now which you might enjoy, and a huge thank you to my Patreon and YouTube members. You guys are freaking awesome. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye for now.